What's going on, guys, and welcome to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for the March 1st, 2024 episode. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. Man, it's March already. That's crazy. But we did have a very strong SmackDown on Friday night. I thought this was a great show, coming off Elimination Chamber last weekend. And based on what they were advertising even a week ago, I knew this would be an eventful episode. They were advertising Dakota Kai getting back in the ring alongside Bayley, which alone is eventful. Dakota Kai hasn't wrestled, I think, since May, in close to 9-10 months, since she injured her ACL or MCL, whatever it was back at that point. And she's been on TV consistently since SummerSlam, but she hasn't been in the ring. She's only been ringside. So she was back in the ring tonight, not really doing much, which we'll get into, but that was eventful. They were advertising the street fight between Carlito and Santos Escobar, which you also had to know was going to lead to the return of Rey Mysterio, and it did. Rey Mysterio back on the blue brand as of last night. We had The Rock on the show, Roman Reigns on the show, the rest of the Bloodline on the show, making a pretty significant WrestleMania development in the opening segment that went about 30-40 minutes. Very reminiscent of that segment from the Madison Square Garden show, which I was at last year, and it was a great show, a great segment, even in person, never really dragged to me. They did that segment, and this was very similar in the sense that it went a very long time, setting up a pretty significant matchup for WrestleMania, taking Cody Rhodes' WrestleMania challenge and adding on to it and adding stipulations and stakes that I didn't think they would. So really like that opening segment. Randy Orton, Austin Theory in the main event. We had Naomi taking on Tiffany Stratton, Braun Breaker in action. A very good show. A really, really enjoyable show. I thought this was a great way to follow up on Elimination Chamber and set forth the road to WrestleMania, which has already been underway since the Royal Rumble, obviously, and really the beginning of the year. But planting more seeds for what we could be seeing at WrestleMania from the Blue Brand side of things. And this is coming off a really, really good Raw on Monday. So hopefully WWE can maintain the momentum on both brands going into WrestleMania. Sometimes it's inconsistent with WWE. Sometimes on the road to WrestleMania, Raw's doing a lot of great stuff. SmackDown not so much. Sometimes SmackDown's killing it. Raw not so much. So far, and I don't want to jinx it, and not every show can be a home run, but so far on the road to WrestleMania, I'm equally intrigued by things going on both brands as it pertains to WrestleMania. They're kind of spreading the love, and there's a lot of matches on the WrestleMania card, both Night 1 and Night 2, from what's been, confirmed anyway and what's been set up, and we don't know what's happening in Night 1 and Night 2 specifically, but what they've set up on both brands has been really keeping my attention. They've done a great job of that. This episode, no exception. So they open up the night with The Rock and Roman Reigns, specifically the Bloodline. The Bloodline came out first. Roman Reigns really said a bunch of nothing for 5 minutes, which he's great at. But listen, Roman Reigns can really say nothing. Not literally nothing, but I guess that too. See the post-WrestleMania 33 episode of Raw, where Roman Reigns came out and said nothing for 5-7 minutes, whatever it was, and got booed out of the building, only said, believe in Roman Reigns, or whatever that, believe that, and then walked away. This was very similar, where he did talk more, but he had to do the whole Arizona, Glendale acknowledgement. He said Glendale first, and then Phoenix, and then back to Glendale. He did it 3 times, and they really stretched it out before they threw out they brought out The Rock, but they threw it to commercial before that, knowing the segment would go long. So I also feared that the rest of the show, because this opening segment went so fucking long, that I had a worry that they might have to spread all the commercial breaks throughout the rest of the show, and the rest of the show would suffer. That was kind of the case with the SmackDown MSG show last summer. And I was there, so it didn't really bother me personally. But when you have a segment go that long, by that point, they've already taken probably around 3 commercial breaks by like 8:30 Eastern time. At least 2 or 3. They took 1 before The Rock came out, but then they went on for another 30 minutes uninterrupted. So the show didn't really seem to suffer to me. I mean, some stuff was cut short. Naomi and Tiffany Stratton had a shorter match than they probably would have. The Braun Breaker match was like 2 seconds, but considering who he was facing, it probably should have been. But it never really bothered me how many commercial breaks they took on the show. It didn't really feel like it was more than usual, although it probably was, at least with the placement sort of thing with the commercials. But anyway, so The Rock comes out, and they did a great job of, kind of setting the stage for what we're getting at WrestleMania here. And before I even mention what he was talking about, he did this great 21-minute promo earlier in the day on Twitter. I didn't have a chance to watch it before I watched this promo. I watched the promo from The Rock on Twitter, socials, whatever, later on, actually after this episode. And he didn't reference that promo here he didn't repeat himself, because that was also part of it too. I didn't have a chance to watch it beforehand, but I also didn't want to watch it in case he repeated himself and brought up that same material from the promo on the phone that he was cutting earlier in the day in this promo here on SmackDown. He did not. I mean, he acknowledged some stuff, but he did a great job of explaining what he said to Cody Rhodes when he came out on that January episode of SmackDown coming out of the Royal Rumble, when he took Cody's spot originally, and clearly they pivoted, because they didn't anticipate the backlash that they were getting for a week there before they changed course back to Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. But the way they've gone about pivoting and attempting to explain it, which they didn't really do up to this point, this was a very big day as far as furthering that story along. Because they really enjoyed the Rock promo that he cut 2 weeks ago, the heel promo. It was a nice, trip down memory lane, a throwback to Hollywood Rock and Attitude Era Rock, Corporation Rock, Nation of Domination Rock, whatever. The Rock of 25 years ago. But he couldn't be that same Rock for every appearance he was going to be making on the road to WrestleMania. We still got plenty more Rock appearances, which is great. He was on that SmackDown 2 weeks ago, but he's on this show, he's advertised for next week and the week after. So we couldn't have him out there for 3 straight weeks. And Cody Rhodes is advertised for all of these shows. He was probably backstage at the show, probably in the dark match, I would have to imagine. I don't know for the people in the building how they explain why Cody Rhodes didn't come out when Rock was out there with Roman Reigns. Maybe they could say, oh, he arrived at the building late. I don't know what he told the audience, if anything. They probably didn't even bother to explain it, because he was at the show, apparently. I don't know about Rollins, but Cody Rhodes was definitely there. And, they're going to be interacting more on the road to WrestleMania. Rock threw out a pretty significant WrestleMania challenge here for Cody Rhodes, because Cody Rhodes back at Elimination Chamber last weekend said, I want The Rock anytime, any place. Did not say specifically at WrestleMania. He's already busy at WrestleMania, facing Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Rock's aware that's probably going on night 2. So what he said was, I'm going to take your challenge and up the ante. I want me and Roman, and he said he had chatted with Roman about it. He talked with Roman about the challenge. Roman still kind of shook his head while Rock was talking about what the match is going to be at Mania. Like, he was saying that if Cody Rhodes and Rollins win, it's bloodline free on night 2 for the World Championship match. But if Rock and Roman win, then it's bloodline rules on Sunday night, on night 2 of WrestleMania. A lot like it was for Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. Although, when I think, was that stipulation not thrown out by Jey Uso? It was probably Roman Reigns, but for SummerSlam, was that not a Jey Uso thing? I'm probably wrong, but I think it's going to be very similar. Now, Rock was kind of going over the top by saying, oh, Solo Sikoa might do the national anthem, and, maybe Jimmy Uso introduces us, whatever. I don't think it's going to be like that necessarily, but I do think Rock and Roman win night 1, so they can do the night 1 thing. They could do the night 2 thing. Maybe Rock pins Cody on night 1. I think it'd be pretty dumb if Rollins were to get pinned in that tag team match before also losing the World Heavyweight Championship on night 2, because that match is probably happening night 2 with Drew. It sucks that Rollins and Drew won't main event night 1, that Bayley and Io won't main event night 1, although I'm not really sure how likely that it was ever going to actually happen. I don't know if the odds of that actually happening were ever really that high, although they deserve it. But, WWE wants to go with the biggest match, and this is the biggest match they do night 1. I'm not the biggest fan of doing a tag team match. The same weekend you're doing Cody and Roman as well on night 2. Having them even touch before then. I mean, on Raw or SmackDown, whatever. If they get a little physical, whatever. But they're doing it on the same weekend. To me, it's overexposure. I think people would still be into the night 2 match, very much so, with the championship on the line. I do think it takes away part of the magic from that matchup if we're already seeing them interact the night before on night 1 in a tag team match. And one of them will probably get pinned. I don't think Cody goes in there and pins The Rock and then it's bloodline free. I'm honestly okay with either stipulation. As weird as that sounds, because we get so much fucking bloodline interference. I would love for the bloodline to be banned from ringside, which should be the case anyway. Adam Pearce or Nick Aldis or whoever really should say, I don't care about your silly stipulation. There will be no bloodline interference regardless. Why he doesn't just say that, I don't know. This has been going on for fucking years now, really since the beginning of the Roman Reigns run as world champion. But, it makes more sense for there to be bloodline interference in night 2 for Roman, or rather for Cody, to have more obstacles to overcome. He's got to overcome Solo, and Jimmy, and Paul Heyman, and probably The Rock. Now, The Rock at the end of this promo, and I know I'm going all over the place here. The Rock at the end of this promo did the same thing he did 2 weeks ago, which I was skeptical of, and I've said that as far as the Easter eggs that Rock was dropping in that promo about kind of looking in Roman's direction when he said, well, I'm going to make you a loser at WrestleMania. Now, he did say Cody Rhodes' name in that same line 2 weeks ago before the camera cut to Roman. Now, I think that was intentional at the time? No. At this point, maybe so. And now, is that a case of Rock and Cody have been in cahoots this whole time? I don't know. Now, Rock did tell Cody in that promo on Twitter earlier in the day, which was so pivotal, because I wish they had said that stuff on SmackDown. But the problem is that a lot of that, they were throwing it back to past moments on the road to WrestleMania. They weren't going to have that same freedom with him swearing and kind of not having the crowd to kind of drag things out. If the crowd was there for that 21-minute promo, this would have gone on for a fucking hour. It would have been story time with The Rock for the first hour of SmackDown. And this segment already went 40 minutes as it was. But he had said, fuck your story and all this other sort of stuff was the last line of Cody, which was amazing. A great way to close out that promo. Do they explain it away by having Rock say, or just have Rock turn on Roman, and him and Cody agreed to kind of swindle the bloodline and get the wool over their eyes before, Rock turns on him and ensures there is no bloodline interference in night 2? Yeah, that's possible, but at the same time, it's kind of like the Dakota Kai Bailey thing where on this show it was perfectly done. A lot like with Asuka late last year when she joined Damage Control. I don't know if she teamed into or tagged into that match that she ended up turning on Bianca and whoever Bianca's partner was, Shotzi maybe, late last year when Asuka turned and she joined Damage Control. If she had gotten physical with Damage Control and then just turned on Bianca, that's just fucking stupid. Because it seemed like she was in on it from the get-go, from the beginning of that match. From the beginning of the night when she came out to confront, team with Bianca. With Dakota Kai on this show, which we'll get to later on, she never tagged into the match. So it wasn't like she was getting physical with the Kabuki Warriors, and then all of a sudden, halfway through, she decided to turn on Bailey, or it was the plan the whole time, and then she was just faking getting physical with Damage Control. That would just be stupid. So with Rock, does he not even tag into the match? I feel like that'd be too similar to what we just saw on the show with the women. I feel like it's got to be a case of Rock getting fed up with Roman or vice versa, and they just implode. And I wouldn't even do the turn on that weekend. I wouldn't even do it that weekend. You got a whole fucking year to build the Rock versus Roman Reigns. And I'm also glad the stipulation isn't, if I beat you on night 1 or if our team wins, then I get added to the championship match. That's just stupid. It's just dumb. Because Rock and Roman at this point are in the same faction. It's not like WrestleMania 30 where Batista and Orton were in the same triple threat with Daniel Bryan. Yeah, they were kind of working together and having a common enemy in Daniel Bryan 10 years ago. But the Authority and the reunion of Evolution wasn't until right after that. It's not like they were in the same group. They did work together in that Mania 30 match, but they also faced each other at certain points as well. At this point, Roman and Rock are in the same group. Unless Rock were to leave the group before Mania, which would be just fucking stupid. So I'm glad they're not doing that. But again, I would hope it's more of a... And I would keep Rock heel. Heel Rock so far has been amazing. This is the best Rock has been in, no doubt, over 20 years. Like when he first came back in 2011, it was great. And I always enjoy The Rock whenever he pops up. But he has literally been doing the same shtick for 13 fucking years. Since he first came back to the company in 2011. Every promo has been almost exactly the same. When he gets serious, it's great. But even like the dumbass insults and like the, PG, and not PG insults, because he was kind of the first one when he came back in 2011 to not say, when he said like ass and stuff like that was kind of almost taboo back in 2011. As dumb as that sounds, when he came back at that point and he was saying damn and ass and stuff like that, the WWE had been PG for a few years by that point, and having grown up in the PG era, I can attest to the fact they weren't really saying that stuff on TV. Now, they say bitch and ass and damn almost in every promo nowadays, but back in 2011 when it was really PG personified, they were not saying that sort of stuff until The Rock came back and kind of broke that ceiling again, and it was also kind of cool when he was doing it. But beyond that, Rock hasn't really been overly interesting and as a television character in WWE, since when he was last here in the early 2000s, until now. This stuff is great. He was not Attitude Era corporate Hollywood Rock. This was 2024 Rock being serious. And what I also really liked about this promo was Roman Reigns showing that he did not like being overshadowed by The Rock in this segment. They didn't really do enough to kind of tell that story 2 weeks ago. They were doing it now. Roman Reigns is the one defending his championship of almost 4 years on night 2. He cannot be an afterthought. Here he kind of was, but that was the point, and they acknowledged it. No pun intended. And while Rock was talking, he turned to Rock and said, "You need to do one thing for me and the family. Acknowledge me." Which Rock ended up doing, and before he could finish off his, if you smell, whatever, he handed the mic to Roman and said, "Acknowledge the bloodline." And that's how they went off, throwing the ones in the air, and The Rock did the little thumb thing, which was clearly intentional this time. But again, is he pointing to Cody Rhodes? Is it The Rock? Do they have a falling out? I know they're probably going to go the way the safe bet is Rock turns on Roman that weekend. Either it's been the plan the whole time, or he just gets fed up with him and having to acknowledge him, and he goes back babyface by helping Cody win the championship, or maybe they have a falling out on night 1. I still say Bloodline should win night 1. I think they probably will. For as weird as that sounds, I don't want Roman and Rock to win, for Roman to win yet another fucking Mania main event. Roman hasn't lost in Mania since WrestleMania, what at this point, 34, since he lost to Brock 6 years ago? At this point, have him win night 1. If Cody eats another loss, it's fine. Honestly, at this point, as long as he wins night 2, that's really all that matters. It would be pretty bad if Bloodline won both nights, obviously. But on the same night, I think it's okay. I think it's totally okay. I mean, during the same weekend, have, Cody eat the loss on night 1, wins night 2. If they tell the story properly, it can work out well. Maybe Rock gets the pin. And after Cody becomes champion, this is why I would keep Rock heel, because they can still build the Cody and Rock one-on-one at some point. Maybe it's SummerSlam, with Cody as champion, Rock as the heel challenger. Maybe not a backlash necessarily, but they can go and build to that match at some other point. And that can add to the Rock and Roman drama going into WrestleMania 41 for next year. So I think so far they've done a terrific job of keeping interest in this storyline. Rock's involvement so far has been amazing, which I was not anticipating. I got to give the company credit because they really just wanted it to be Cody and Roman one-on-one. Don't muddy the waters with The Rock, but The Rock's extra layer in this experiment, in this storyline, in this latest chapter in the book of the Bloodline, has been incredibly intriguing. Now, it's imperative they stick the landing here and don't fuck this up, but so far so good. Even if they go the direction I think they are, as long as Cody wins at WrestleMania, to me that's really all that matters. But I think they can make it extra interesting and even ride this wave even longer by having Rock be a heel beyond WrestleMania. And the match next year is babyface Roman Reigns versus heel Rock and not the other way around. So I thought that was a great way to close the show. And I will say this, as far as the drawbacks of having a 40-minute opening segment, a lot like the MSG show last year, it takes time away from the other talent. Naomi didn't even get a televised entrance on the show. Tiffany Stratton had her entrance slightly cut. Naomi's entrance wasn't even shown. You would think she'd be a local fucking athlete, and she just came back a month ago. I'm not worried for Naomi. Yeah, she was the first one eliminated in the Elimination Chamber last weekend. They were all stars in that thing. You could probably say, oh, what about Raquel? Well, Raquel just came back on Monday, and she's like one of their, more dominant women, so I could see why she lasted a little bit longer. I figure Naomi would probably be the first one gone. It's not like, and I like her, but Michin or Zelina Vega or Shotzi or whoever, I like all those women, but it's not like they were in the chamber. If they were in the chamber, they should have been the first ones gone, but they weren't. It was all stars for the most part in that women's chamber, and she had to be the first one eliminated. I mean, if it wasn't her, it probably would have been, if it was Raquel, I wouldn't have complained, and I like Raquel, but it is what it is. Tiffany should not have been the first one eliminated, or Bianca, or Becky, or Liv. So it's really just a matter of elimination, no pun intended. So again, back to the Bloodline thing real quickly, last thing on this, I promise, that they need to do as strong of a job and put as much effort as they do in that sort of stuff in other storylines on the show. And I'm liking the Dakota Kai, Bayley, Damage Control storyline with Io Sky going to WrestleMania. I like that. Among other things they're doing on SmackDown right now going into WrestleMania. I like all of that. Nothing receives remotely as much attention or effort from this company creatively than the Bloodline stuff. And I know it's like their end-all, be-all and whatnot, and that's kind of like their coup de grace, and they really like to make it up as the biggest storyline in the company, and that's great. It's like their literal Endgame in WWE. Their version of Endgame from Marvel is WWE's Endgame here with the Bloodline, which is great. And I appreciate that, but they also need to put that same creative effort into other stuff on the show. Sheamus said it best in that interview, I think with Daily Mail or whatever, about a year ago, and saying, listen, the Bloodline stuff is great. The storyline's awesome, but that's because they put a lot of effort and creative juice into those storylines. They get a lot of TV time. What about everyone else? We haven't even seen Sheamus since the end of last year when he got hurt last summer. So, and he's not wrong when he says that. So after this bloodline stuff runs its course, which it did a year ago, but they're kind of making it interesting again with the whole Rock thing. Coming out of WrestleMania, they need to put forth the same effort into other storylines in the show. And that's how people get over and people get interested in other storylines and stuff like that. So, and not just the bloodline. But we had Tiffany Stratton and Naomi on the show. Naomi got beat in the Elimination Chamber by Tiffany, so it was a logical match to do. And they had a nice match. I thought they worked well together. Didn't get a ton of time, but they made the most of the time they did have. And Tiffany's moonsault looked beautiful as always. Just a fantastic moonsault. Got a very good reaction here, too, did Tiffany. She's gradually getting over. If you were watching Elimination Chamber, she had a pretty favorable reaction in Perth from that Perth crowd. So, I mean, obviously she's supposed to be a heel, which at some point she's going to have to heel on the audience a bit more, which she did in her last couple of promos at the press conference and on SmackDown and stuff like that. But, you know, at least she's getting a reaction. There's a lot of NXT call-ups they bring back or bring up, and they just don't get a reaction. It takes a lot longer for them to get over, or they just never get over. People like, and I like her, but like Candice and, you know, people like that, Michin, Shotzi, a lot of those women are just not even close to being over. Tiffany is already way more over than any of those women were when they first got called up or even now. So I like the effort they're putting into her. And again, that's also a case of she's on the show every week. She's being booked to win. She's also just an interesting character and she's really good in the ring. But, you know, they need to put forward that same effort into other women as well and be consistent with it. Tiffany got called up a month ago. She's been on most SmackDowns, hasn't lost a match yet. And she's also just really fun to watch in the ring. I'm still hoping we get Tiffany and Bianca at WrestleMania. I'm not as confident coming off of this episode, though, because it was interesting, and we'll kind of bleed this into the next match. Bayley and Dakota Kai versus the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, the Kabuki Warriors, non-title. Big Damage Control versus Bayley and Dakota Kai match, the implosion of Damage Control. The match was, it was good, but it was more about the match-ending angle, which the match got thrown out, so the match never really had a conclusion. They didn't want to pin Bayley, whatever. I mean, I wish they had more attention to detail as far as, like, they didn't even bother ringing the bell. They did the same thing when Asuka turned late last year. They didn't even bother ringing the bell. They just had the segment end, which was weird. So Bayley gets beat up for the entire match, finally goes to tag in Dakota. Dakota, as I mentioned earlier, jumps off the apron. How anyone can trust this woman at this point, I have no idea. She is now 3 for 3 in turning on teammates, from Tegan Nox to Raquel Rodriguez to now Bayley. No one can trust this woman. But anyway, she jumps off the apron. She did get physical. Bayley did beat her up at ringside a little bit before the Kabuki Warriors made the save. So I do think Dakota Kai is clear, and this wasn't just an angle to have her out there and she didn't, wrestle. She didn't wrestle, but she did get physical. So I do think she's cleared, which is great. And they can build a Bayley and Dakota before Mania if they want to, or coming out of Mania, whatever. Hopefully if Bayley wins the championship at Mania, gets that Mania moment. If Io wins, it's not the end of the world, and that'd be a massive win for Io. But I just feel like with the way this storyline is going, Bayley should probably win at WrestleMania. But anyway, though, so, the way they did this with Dakota Kai attacking Bayley, teaming up on her with the Kabuki Warriors and Io Sky was great. I thought it was well done. Predictable, but well done. I enjoyed it. It was a necessary development in the angle and the storyline to put more heat on Damage Control, put Bayley back in chase mode. I liked it. Now, what's interesting about this and how it ties into Bianca, when Damage Control were walking backstage after the fact, and we had LA Knight, by the way, before I forget, walking throughout the show backstage, looking for AJ Styles, who cost him his chance to advance to WrestleMania to fight for the World Heavyweight Championship by attacking him inside the Elimination Chamber last week. AJ was not on the show, so LA Knight was kind of looking around for him, and Nick Aldis told him, he's not on the show, check back next week. So they're keeping that on ice until next week. But when Damage Control were walking backstage, they confronted and walked by Jade Cargill. Now, it is interesting to note we have not seen Jade really on Raw at all, maybe once. But since the Rumble, when Jade's been teasing, which brand do I sign with, she's primarily been appearing on SmackDown. So unless they're swerving us and she goes to Raw, which is possible because I thought Braun Breaker was going to Raw and he didn't, I still think Jade should probably go to Raw. I still think the Nia Jax match makes sense. Maybe this was just a tease for something that won't happen. But an idea that came to mind, Bayley needs friends. I mean, she can't go up against a 4-1 deficit between now and WrestleMania. That's just ridiculous. Now, bringing in Naomi would make sense because Bayley and Naomi have a mutual friend in Sasha Banks. They're not going to acknowledge that on the show, not outright, but maybe they could kind of lean into it or whatever. Bianca would make sense. Her and Bayley have a very long history as rivals, but they can kind of do the mutual respect thing because they have a common enemy and damage control, whatever. And that fourth woman could be Jade Cargill. Just because if they really wanted to get Bianca on the card, they could do Bianca and Jade versus Kabuki Warriors for the tag team titles. Now, that was an idea that some people had pitched at one point. I even asked Bianca about it. And Bianca, when I interviewed her back, I've interviewed her a lot, but when I interviewed her back in October, and I mentioned the Jade thing because she had just signed at that point, and I mentioned the dream match and whatever, which she had to bring up, she was the one that kind of twisted it and turned it around and said, what about us teaming? And I'm thinking, oh, that's interesting. So that could be one way to bring in Jade from the get-go and have her not work singles matches for a while, but you kind of ease her into the process by doing tag team stuff with Bianca. They'd be a hell of a team. You could build a singles match down the road. Now, I would also be equally content, as weird as this is to say, with her going to Raw to face Nia. The match sounds awful, I get it, but it could be better than expected, who knows. And I feel like that could be the Mania spectacle, because if they don't have Jade face Nia, and again, if Nia's not on the card, I'm not going to shed a tear, but I feel like they might want Nia Jax on the WrestleMania card for all the good work she's done since she's been back. She's been on Raw almost every single week. Because if Nia doesn't face Jade, Nia's probably not at WrestleMania, unless they do some sort of WrestleMania showcase, which some dumbass tag team match, that'd be just a waste. I don't need to see Nia Jax teaming with someone again. Now, reuniting with Tamina? No thanks. From 5 years ago? No fucking thanks. I feel like the Jade and Nia match is a bit of a better option. The only person who wouldn't end up, I guess Naomi wouldn't be at WrestleMania anyway, unfortunately. And it's not like Bianca doesn't have a Mania match if she doesn't face the Kabuki Warriors. The Kabuki Warriors don't have an opponent, don't have a team to face, but again, who gives a shit? They could just be in Io's corner. I don't give a fuck about those tag team titles, so who even cares? But at least me personally. But anyway, as far as Bianca Belair, she could still end up in Mania, as I've said before, facing Tiffany Stratton. They've teased it, they've interacted. They didn't have an interaction in the chamber, which makes me think, which is why I don't think they're doing the match at Mania. Because otherwise, I think they would have had Bianca and not, who was it that pinned her? Liv? Yeah, Liv pinned her in the chamber. They could have had Bianca do it, and she didn't. Bianca was not on the show. So I do think they're leaning towards doing the tag team thing instead, with Bianca and probably Jade backing up Bayley against Damage Control. I think, not that it would make more sense, but that seems to be the direction they're going in. And Tiffany, I guess at that point, would not end up with a WrestleMania match. Neither Tiffany nor Nia. I guess they could be in some sort of battle royal. Tiffany can maybe win that, but they're pushing her pretty aggressively so far to not be on the Mania card. So I honestly kind of hope we do get Bianca and Tiffany at Mania in a singles match, because like every fucking women's match at Mania, oh, it's a title on the line, or oh, it's a, whatever, some sort of stupid stipulation or a tag team match that doesn't matter. Why can't we just get Bianca and Tiffany in a straight up match? Doesn't need to be a stipulation, doesn't need to be a championship match. We've never had that before, and we're not counting the dumbass like bras and panties crap. Like, I think that'd be cool. Or Jade and Nia, same thing, so, I don't know. That wasn't like a multi-woman match just to get everyone on the card. So, we had Braun Breaker in action after that. Another guy I don't really know what they're doing with the WrestleMania as of right now. But so far, so good. He completely squashed the returning Zion Quinn here. So we haven't seen Zion Quinn in action. Not that anyone gives a shit, but what's funny about Zion Quinn was that a lot of people would probably have forgotten about this. He went undrafted in the WWE draft last year. I don't think he was ever even eligible. I know everyone on every roster is eligible, but I don't know if he was in... the NXT people technically are eligible, but like eligible to be drafted at Raw and SmackDown. He didn't get drafted at Raw or SmackDown. He went undrafted, as did Von Wagner. Now, the thing with Von Wagner was, it seemed like to me, yeah, he went undrafted, but Triple H was like, no. Like, we're not putting him in the main roster right now, so keep him right down in NXT where he belongs. Same thing with Zion Quinn, but it doesn't really feel like Shawn Michaels has had any plans for Zion Quinn either, because the guy has not been used since. He may have been like in 1 or 2 battle royals on the main roster. Maybe it's SummerSlam, maybe in a Raw battle royal last year to crown like an Intercontinental Championship #1 contender. Beyond that, we have not seen Zion Quinn on any show at all, including like Level Up or NXT. So I thought the guy might be on his way out. He popped up here, and he might still get his walking paper soon, because he got beat as soon as the bell rang. The bell rang, Braun Breaker speared him, and it was over. So exactly as it should have gone. It doesn't even matter if the match was supposed to go long or had the Rock segment not gone long. Maybe it was supposed to be a 2-minute squash. I honestly thought this was more effective, because Zion Quinn is not a small guy. Breaker pinning him and beating him immediately was way more effective. Zion Quinn can take the loss, and no one gives a shit about the guy. he's damaged goods at this point. Breaker's a guy that you have him on the ascent. It was way more impressive for him to win that quickly than to beat this guy in 2 minutes. So I thought that was great. And I joked on Twitter earlier, bring back Goldberg to WWE, ... just to have him get quickly squashed by Braun Breaker. And I stand by that, honestly. I'm not saying they need to do it. But Goldberg is complaining, oh, I never got a retirement match. You know what? If he's fucking whining about not getting one final match, give him one final match. He's still going to lose. If his whole thing is that he wants to go over, then fucking deal with it, cry in retirement. But it would be cool if they really wanted to give him one proper final match, and it wouldn't have to, I mean, I don't know how good an actual match would be, but just have him in there to put over Braun Breaker. He's got history with Scott Steiner. I'm sure he wouldn't mind doing the job to Breaker. I've talked to Goldberg and Braun Breaker before about each other, and, he's given him advice, and they're very mutually respectful towards one another, blah, blah, blah. So, I think it'd be cool to see Breaker beat Goldberg at like a Mania, because otherwise I don't know what you do with Breaker at Mania. I thought maybe Kevin Owens, but Breaker's a babyface now. Kevin Owens is probably going to be busy. We'll get to that in a second. I don't know what else you do with the guy. He probably will be in or win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. But if they want to put him on the actual Mania card, because that Battle Royal's been on the SmackDown before Mania for years now, so he probably won't be on the card. Same thing with Tiffany. Like, I'm not really sure why they call these people up when they do, if they won't be on the Mania card. If he wins the Battle Royal, then fine. Doesn't mean anything, but fine. Better than nothing. His buddy Baron Corbin, his tag team partner in NXT, won that Battle Royal in his NXT or main roster debut back in 2016. So it would be kind of cool. That being said, it would be even cooler if he was on the actual Mania card doing something of note. Doing what again? I don't know, but just an idea. They probably won't put him in like a singles match of importance because they already have the U.S. Championship match. Hopefully Rey and Santos one-on-one, not some multi-man crap. LA Knight and AJ Styles one-on-one. So they do have a lot of SmackDown feuds going on right now. Braun Breaker probably would not factor into that equation, in addition to Cody and Roman, obviously. And the tag team match on night one with those same people. So Braun Breaker probably won't be on the show, but having him win the Battle Royal would not be a bad idea either. So I mentioned Rey being back. He did return during the subsequent street fight between Carlito and Santos. Now, we just did get a street fight on Monday's Raw between Imperium and New Day. And that was great. This was also equally enjoyable. It was very similar. Like, they're not very hardcore street fights, but I appreciated the gear from both guys, both Carlito and Santos wearing pants, which is, it's a small thing, but it's a nice touch. Attention to detail. It's a street fight. Why would you come up wearing gear? Imperium did on Monday, but they're also like the wrestlers. So, I mean, I get why they would wear, the regular gear. But for Escobar and Carlito, they wore like their street clothes, quote unquote, and it was cool. So they had a fun match. Rey comes down after Legado gets thwarted by Angel and Humberto, and then out comes Rey Mysterio on crutches. Now, we have not seen Rey in about 4 months, if you can believe it. 4 months ago, I don't know if he got hurt, but he had to undergo knee surgery, which is why he lost the United States Championship to Logan Paul at Crown Jewel, which was probably always the plan, but the split between him and Escobar was definitely, rushed. So Escobar could hit him off, knock him off, and he can be written off TV and whatever. So Rey's back here. He reveals he's not hurt, takes the crutches, attacks Angel and Humberto, who's back to just being Humberto, by the way. They're not calling him Berto, which was stupid. Humberto's much better, so it should be Humberto Carrillo, but whatever. So he evens the odds. He gets in the ring, helps Carlito, rather. That would have been a dumb swerve. Helps Carlito take out Escobar, put him through the table, hits a 619, backstabber, blah, blah, blah. And Escobar goes down. So LWO victorious after being beaten down for months now by the Legado faction. Very fun match and a great development here. Now that Rey's back, they can finally set up Rey and Santos for Mania. And again, please make this a one-on-one match. It does not need to be a multi-person tag team match with Zelina and Elektra and Legado and LWO. I get it's a faction war. I understand that. It really should be Rey and Santos at Mania. Maybe they want to do the tag team match at Mania and then a singles match again after that, or down the road. No, it really has got to be, in my opinion, it's got to be Rey and Santos one-on-one. I know we've already seen the match twice, and they were good matches, but they could do even better, and it should be one-on-one at Mania. This time, Santos wins. I know he won the first time, but it was by referee stoppage, and he lost clean the second time. So I would have that match be one-on-one at Mania, and Escobar wins. After Rey already got his moment last year with Dominic, he does not need to win again at WrestleMania, does Rey. So I would have Santos win this time around. And just like that, we were at the main event. We also found out, before I get to the main event, that New Catch Republic, which I'm not a big fan of the name, but whatever, Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, they went up to Nick Aldis backstage and were like, hey, we'd like another crack at the tag team titles. Nick Aldis kind of made it sound like he was talking with Adam Pearce, and he outright said that, about what the tag titles would entail for WrestleMania. And, I mean, I guess that could be some sort of multi-team match at Mania for the tag titles. I fucking hate the multi-team stuff. We've already seen Fatal 4-Ways in recent weeks with the Raws and SmackDown teams. I don't want to see a WrestleMania showcase match. I don't want to see a multi-team match for the tag titles in Mania. I don't want to see a tag team turmoil match. I mean, I guess you could. I don't really want to say it. I mean, I guess they could do a tag team turmoil match on night one to face Awesome Truth on night, or to face, that's who I think should win, to face Judgment Day on night two. It really should just be Judgment Day versus Awesome Truth. It really should just be. Just do that match in Mania. I know they've already done it, but this time Awesome Truth win the belts. That's got to me, be the Mania match for the tag team titles. So that's what I would do. Just build to it and not tease like, oh, I mean, like you could do that with Gunther. Have Gunther do the whole Crown a Contender night one, face the champion night two. Do that with them. Do that with Gunther. Don't do it with Judgment Day. They've already beaten a lot of these teams. They've already beaten Bate and Dunn and DIY and the Creed brothers. They're not getting another opportunity. It should be Awesome Truth. That's the match that makes sense. So hopefully they announce maybe like a mini tournament maybe, which I mean I guess they also already kind of did. I mean that would also be kind of lazy too. Yeah, I guess that's kind of the same thing. I was thinking a tournament, but they just did that too by having the Fatal 4-Way on SmackDown a few weeks ago and the Fatal 4-Way on Raw, and the winners face each other. It would kind of be the same thing. So I'm not really sure what they have in mind, but I guess we'll find out. But yeah, the main event, Randy Orton versus Austin Theory, which kind of seemed like a weird main event to do on a show where Rey Mysterio came back and the damage control thing happened. They saved like the most inconsequential match for last. I'm not really sure why, but it was a fun match, and the match was fine. And the crowd was just happy to see Randy Orton. So that's probably what it was. They wanted people to stay in the building for some big star. Because Carlito and Santos are great, but they're not like Randy Orton, and neither are Damage Control. So I kind of get why they went with this on last. But they set it up earlier in the episode by having Orton walking on Theory and Waller watching the video of Logan Paul eliminating Orton and hitting him with the brass knucks from Elimination Chamber last weekend. So Orton wasn't all too thrilled. He was fucking funny in his response in that segment. Face Theory here, kind of like Orton modern day versus Orton from 02-03. Now, I don't want to do, I mean, that's I don't want to do Theory like that because that's not a slight to Theory. It's more of a slight to Orton, actually. Theory is very talented. I think Theory's great. He's not Orton of 02, but that's kind of what it reminded me of. Like, if he was Orton in 02, he would have been a world champion by now. He's been in WWE now for like 5 years. Orton won a world title within 2 or 3 years being in the company. Theory's great, but he's not quite as charismatic or as naturally gifted as Orton was at that point, although he is very athletic in his own right. But they had a fun match here. The best part of the match was the finish. Just a beautiful RKO from Theory. And the guy gets a lot of shit for, lack of charisma. He's a charisma vacuum, blah, blah, blah. He's a great seller. Him and Waller both, but definitely Theory. Theory was going for, honestly, when he first hit that first blockbuster and he connected, that looked like that could be turned into an RKO. And I was kind of hoping they would repeat that spot, because that could easily be turned into an RKO. And they didn't do that. Instead, he went through the ropes and was going for like a rolling drop kick. And Orton hit it great. They timed it perfectly. But the height he got in this RKO was amazing. And then he also sold the stunner like death, like Rock style, from Mania 17 or whatever, 19, I don't know, whatever Mania was. Sold it like death after the match. When Kevin Owens, who was on commentary, gave him a stunner. And Orton also laid out Grayson Waller with an RKO. And the crowd went nuts for that. And again, Waller selling it great. So Owens and Orton standing tall to close out the show. Orton has an issue with Logan Paul. Logan Paul's issue with Owens was never resolved. I was thinking originally they would solve or wrap up Owens and Logan Paul on SmackDown before getting to Orton and Paul at WrestleMania. Orton and Paul is the bigger match one-on-one. You could save that for down the road. At this point, I think it makes more sense to do a triple threat. If they're not doing a triple threat with the World Heavyweight Championship or the Women's World Championship or any other title on the show, they shouldn't do two triple threats. But if we're only getting one triple threat, I'd be fine with this being it. It gets Owens on the card, who deserves it, who should not. Because Owens, I get the idea that not everyone's going to make the Mania card, but he and Sammy specifically fucking headlined Mania last year. Not only were on the card, they headlined Mania. And Owens specifically, he headlined Mania the year before too, with Stone Cold Steve Austin. So to not have him on the show would be pretty ridiculous. I think it makes a lot of sense to have him. I mean, I think this is a better use of him than facing Braun Breaker and having him lose to Braun. If, Owens was going to be a heel or Braun was going to turn heel or something. I'm not sure. But I think this is great, though. I think we can get the resolution to Logan Paul and Owens. Maybe we get Orton and Logan Paul on TV before then if Logan Paul is going to be more full-time. He was not on this show, interestingly. Like, of all the shows, he was not on this one, which I guess they didn't really need him. But I don't know if he's going to be on every SmackDown between now and WrestleMania. He will be back next week, they said. But I like the idea of a triple threat. And also I like the idea of a triple threat because maybe they can build to a Logan Paul retaining outcome. And then LA Knight, I can still get what I want, having LA Knight beat Logan Paul for that championship at some point between now and SummerSlam. Maybe not at SummerSlam. That's a little too long. That's a little too far away. But I like the idea of LA Knight being the one. I've always said this. I like the idea of LA Knight being the one to take that championship from Logan Paul. And hopefully on the sooner side, in like France at the Backlash show in the May or April, whenever it is, that'd be great. So hopefully that's what happens. Maybe not a Backlash, but I wouldn't mind. I think that crowd would go fucking nuts for LA Knight beating Logan Paul for that championship. And that's going to do it, guys, for my review, my lengthy review of SmackDown from last night, March 1st, 2024. A great show, like I said. No filler. Everything served a purpose. I was entertained. I did not watch the show live, so maybe it was more grating live. And I forgot to mention the audio issues, too, they had during the opening segment. God, it was so fucking annoying. And it wasn't a feed thing either. They just kept cutting out the feed because they had the Die Rocky Die thing on TV. Just confiscate the sign. I don't understand. That was the issue. According to Mike Johnson, a PW Insider, the reason why they kept cutting the audio is because people were swearing and shit, which is, get over it. But like they were cutting the screen every 2 seconds, including the audio. And apparently that's because there was a Die Rocky Die sign in the front row, which is ridiculous. Like, who gives a shit? But if that's what the problem was, then confiscate the sign. Why did we have to suffer through that for 30 plus minutes? That was ridiculous. Other than that, though, I thought this was a great show. Thoroughly enjoyed it. SmackDown's got momentum right now. Monday Night Raw's got momentum right now heading into WrestleMania. You'll love to see it. They follow it up on Elimination Chamber really, really well this week. And I hope they can maintain this momentum heading into WrestleMania, which is in only 1 month. Mania's in a month from now, so. And there's a lot of matches that are set up. Not officially confirmed, but a lot of matches they set up on both SmackDown and Raw that I'm looking forward to. Thank you guys for checking out my review. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. The SmackDown Lowdown review should be up sometime tomorrow, so check that out. All the other content from the past week, including Q&As, interviews, reviews, miscellaneous videos, shorts, and so much more. I appreciate the support. I appreciate you subscribing to the channel and checking out all the content as we approach the road to WrestleMania. So with that being said, guys, have an awesome one. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday/weekend, and I'll catch your ass down the road.